Game number 4 has Jimbo Fisher-led Florida State Seminoles, ranked number 18th in the country, traveling to Norman, Oklahoma to play the 10th-ranked Sooners. And boy, that sounds funny, doesn't it? Somebody else besides Bobby Bowden coaching the Florida State Seminoles.
It does, and again, there's a whole other can of worms we could open up and talk about, how Bobby Bowden was treated. What I do like about Florida State is, and I understand they played, I think it was Samford, who, not a lot of people know a lot about them, but there's a new coach. There's a lot of excitement around Jimbo Fisher. Little brother Stoops is on Jimbo Fisher's staff, and just reading a story about him, jumping up and down on a bed and getting whipped with pillows by his older brothers. Maybe he has a couple surprises for big brother Bob for the pillow swiping days. I don't know. What I didn't like last week has to do with Oklahoma. They slipped by Utah State, and a lot of people are thinking, maybe they're holding back, maybe they're not, doing a whole lot of stuff. Maybe they're looking past Utah State. They know they have Florida State coming in. But my big question is, can they throw the football? I'm thinking back to the days of Barry Switzer when, you were in the wishbone and you got option, and they could only run the football, and they threw a pass every other month. Here, it looks a lot like the same kind of thing. Can they throw the football? If they can't, they will not beat Florida State. And for that reason, I'm going to pick Florida State to go on in there and beat them.
Good pick. I'm going to have to disagree, and let me tell you why. The big 3 reasons that I think Oklahoma wins this game are Landry Jones, the quarterback, wide receiver Ryan Broyles, and running back DeMarco Murray, who had well over 100 yards rushing last week. Oklahoma had a bad game, did not perform to their standards against Utah State, as Mr. Molino mentioned earlier. Only won the game 31-24, and it was extremely close the whole way through. I think you're going to see a different Oklahoma team this Saturday in Norman, Oklahoma. They've got a much more quality opponent coming in. I think Christian Ponder has too much on his back. I think Oklahoma is going to be able to frustrate them defensively. Better athletes across the board, close for a while, maybe close the whole game, but Oklahoma eventually wins, in my opinion. Game number 5 has 2 teams battling against one another, traditionally play every year, great schools, great traditional teams. Neither one of them are ranked, and both of them are trying to find their national identity after 3 or 4 or 5 years of being away from the spotlight. And those teams are the Michigan Wolverines, traveling to Notre Dame Stadium to play the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. And Coach, great game this week.
Well, this one's tough. But, I'm going to stay on my heart run here throughout all these picks today. Not that I really like Ohio State, like you said, or really like Florida State, but my heart tells me they're going to win, and that's probably who I'm rooting for anyhow. In this game, I'm not a real big fan of Rich Rodriguez leaving his alma mater in West Virginia to go to Michigan, but he does have some good things going for him right now. He has his own recruits in there, and they look like they're starting to learn and know what he wants. Last week in beating up on Connecticut, they have this us against the world attitude. They were in the press a lot over the summer, criticized for a lot of things that were going on, possible, practicing too long and certain rules and fractions. So they kind of have that attitude. And here he is again, coaching against another former Big East coach in Brian Kelly. The only question I have about Michigan in this game is their defense ready. The defense has been leaky. It hasn't looked real good. I don't know if that's ready. Looking at Notre Dame, Brian Kelly, and we talked about this before the show, I think he's a perfect fit at Notre Dame. Everybody's excited. They seem to be ready to go. He's a good coach. They could have blown Purdue out of the water, I thought. There was a turnover in that game where I thought Notre Dame punches it in there. Maybe the game gets out of hand. And again, they're playing at home, and I like the home teams in college football. The only worry I have with Notre Dame in this game is Michigan's offensive line. Michigan's offensive line is experienced. They're big. They're tough. Can Notre Dame stop the rushing attack that Michigan has?
So who are you picking?
I'm going to pick Notre Dame at home because to be honest, I can't pick Michigan. Maybe against Ohio State, but I just have a feeling Brian Kelly, Notre Dame equals things get turned around.
This for me on our slate this week. This is the toughest one for me to pick. We've gone back and forth all week long thinking about who's going to come out on top. For the Irish fans out there who have been extremely frustrated for their past couple coaches, and rightfully so, you've got tremendous talent. I think what you're going to see this year is you finally have a college football coach that knows how to develop talent, knows how to get that talent on the field, and isn't so structured and isn't so stubborn that they're unwilling to play freshmen or unwilling to change or make adjustments. Several key adjustments last week between the first half and the second half, even the second and third series, Notre Dame with Purdue, in terms of subtle things, in terms of blocking assignments. You saw Purdue's All-American defensive end basically disappear after the second series last week. He was a terror the first series, part of the second series, and then the rest of the game you hardly heard from him. They made some subtle adjustments. I like Brian Kelly. I like where Notre Dame's program is going. I think they're going to play with a lot of passion from now on. They're going to look like a college football team. That being said, I still have some concerns about what actually is there defensively. Now, they played fairly well against Purdue last week, but they are going to be going up against Mr. Denard Robinson, who's a tremendous athlete. I think as the season goes on, if he stays healthy, you're going to find him and his name being mentioned with the Heisman Trophy as a possible candidate. They played a very physical Connecticut team last week and really had some breaks. Connecticut fumbled within, inside the 5-yard line, etc. But they outplayed Connecticut. They out-physicaled them, and they did a great job in opening some eyes. They've got a very experienced and very large, very physical offensive line. I think it's a little bit too much for Notre Dame. Look for a lot of points in this game. Look for this one to possibly be the best game of the weekend. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to go with Michigan just because of the experience up front on offense and the fact that I think Denard Robinson gives them a dual threat, being able to throw the ball and run the ball, whereas Dane Christ is more of a pocket passer, isn't going to hurt them too much with his legs on the ground.